Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. And today we're on part 10 of my R. Kelly series where I report on news that is related to the R. Kelly case. So today, attorney Micheal Avenatti was arrested on federal charges. And I will let you know how all of this relates to R. Kelly in a second, but let me give you a brief history on Mr. Avenatti. Just going back a year. So this guy represented Stormy Daniels, and Stormy Daniels is a former adult film star who alleged that she had an affair with Donald Trump, who's president of the United States, and that during his campaign or when he was getting ready to run for president, that he paid her $130,000 to keep quiet about their relationship. And so recently, Donald Trump's personal attorney, a guy named Michael Cohen, pled guilty to actually paying her this money and about lying and what have you. And so he's scheduled to report to prison, to federal prison in May. And I believe he was sentenced to 47 months for his involvement. And all along, Donald Trump denied that he had anything to do with this, that Michael Cohen was operating on his own. He never told him to pay Stormy Daniels this money. So after Michael Cohen pled guilty, then there was like a dissolution of their relationship. Stormy Daniels fired Micheal Avenatti, and she claimed that he, wrongdoing on his part, and she actually put out a tweet today in response to the charges against Micheal Avenatti. So in her tweet, she says, knowing what I know now about Micheal Avenatti, I am saddened but not shocked by news reports that he has been criminally charged today. I made the decision more than a month ago to terminate Michael's services after discovering that he had dealt with me extremely dishonestly, and there will be more announcements to come. I ask that the media respect my decision to withhold further public comment regarding Mr. Avenatti at this time. So after he took on Stormy Daniels as a client, then there was another case that he was involved with, and this time it had to do with the Brett Kavanaugh nomination to the Supreme Court. So Brett Kavanaugh was nominated by Donald Trump to the Supreme Court, and so during the confirmation process, it came out that he had sexually assaulted or allegedly sexually assaulted a classmate when they were in high school. And so after this claim came out and it was being investigated, then different women started coming out saying that they too had been sexually assaulted or mistreated by Brett Kavanaugh or had information to support the woman that was accusing him. And so one of those people, and I'm going to be honest with you, the last time I talked about this lady, I forgot to Google her name, but I'm going to probably butcher her name. But her name was something like Judy Schweitznick or something like that. But anyway, this chick claimed that when she was in college, she used to go to where Brett Kavanaugh lived, and that they would have these teen parties, which is common, I'm sure, all over the U.S. And so she would go to these house parties, and at these house parties, they had this spike punch that they were forcing the girls to drink or encouraging the girls to drink. And then the boys would take the girls into these back bedrooms and run a train on them. And so as the stories just kept growing and growing and growing, there was all this stuff going on in Congress where they wanted the FBI to further investigate, although the FBI had done all these background checks. and it came back that Brett Kavanaugh, I guess had a clean background. And so they said, okay, well, before we confirm him or have the vote to confirm him, we want the FBI to investigate one more again, okay? So the FBI did do another investigation. However, they chose not to investigate the story by this Judy Swineck woman who was being represented by Michael Avenatti. So, that was like another strike against him. Like, nobody believes him. He's full of crap. So then after all of this happened, he was then forced to give up financial control of his law firm, and then partners in his law firm accused him of stealing money from, somehow he was stealing money from a client and using that money to support his own personal lifestyle and his own businesses. And so he was being investigated for that. And so right as that story was about to break, he comes up and announces that he's representing 6 people who are whistleblowers, parents of Azriel Clary, who is R. Kelly's girlfriend, and 2 other women who we later find out is part of the indictment against R. Kelly, and that's Geronda Pace, and then whoever the person is that has the initials LC. And I believe from one of my older videos, LC is the hairstylist who claims that she thought she was supposed to have been braiding R. Kelly's hair, but then he came in and assaulted her, and she's the one that had her and Geronda both allegedly have these t-shirts or whatever that have semen on them and that have been tested and proven to be R. Kelly's semen. Okay, and then who else does he represent? Oh, and then he says that he represents 2 whistleblowers, because I think it was 6 people in total that he represents. So he came out, and then he claimed that he had this video, and now it's 2 videos, might be 3 videos, and all of this stuff going on. And his so with the Surviving R. Kelly's docudrama reality series, and with the whole Avenatti case, he pushed Kim Fox of Chicago, the Chicago prosecutor, to formally press these charges that R. Kelly is now facing against 4 alleged victims, and there's like 10 counts total. So now y'all remember part 9 of the R. Kelly series. I talked about an attorney by the name of Lydia Agu, who was representing Faith Rogers, who's another woman who was accusing R. Kelly of wrongdoing, but she's not part of the indictment. And that Faith Rogers had filed charges with the Dallas police. She had filed charges with the Dallas Police Department, and she had also filed charges with Long Beach, not Long Beach, is it Long Beach, New York? Somewhere in New York, she had filed these charges, and both of these jurisdictions chose not to follow through or to formally charge R. Kelly with her allegations, because they said they were both adults and there was no proof that he had actually forced her to do any of the things that she alleged that he was doing. And so she was supposed to have a preliminary hearing last week on her civil case against R. Kelly, but that was put on hold because her attorney, Lydia Agu, was found guilty on Wednesday of last week of, I think it was committing a fraud. I have to go back and I'll plug in what she, you can actually go back to part 9 of the R. Kelly series, because I actually talk about it in depth. But anyway, her attorney was found guilty of wrongdoing on last Wednesday, and she is now facing like 40 or 50 years in prison. So that means that the Faith Rogers lady has to find another attorney if she wants to pursue her civil case against R. Kelly, but definitely a setback for her. And so now with Michael Avenatti being arrested, this is now a setback for Geronda Pace and the other the LC woman, not necessarily because Michael Avenatti was arrested, because we all know that this is a criminal case and that in criminal cases, those cases are tried by the prosecutor and not by personal attorneys. But, he definitely, if there had been a verdict in those cases, then he could turn around and try to sue R. Kelly for them. But this is why I say that it's going to throw a monkey wrench in their case, because in part of the indictment, which I will read in full after I do this little recap here, it states, so I believe it's page 10 of the indictment, and this is paragraph E. And Avenatti then added that, quote, "I just want to share with you what's going to happen if we don't meet a resolution," end quote. Avenatti then laid out again his threat of harm to Nike, adding that as soon as this becomes public, I am going to receive calls from all over the country, from parents and coaches and friends and all kinds of people. This is always what happens. They are all going to say, "I've got an email or a text message," or, and then, whatever, etc. Now, 90% of that is going to be bullshit, because it's always bullshit. 90% of the time, always, whether it's R. Kelly or Trump. The list goes on and on. But 10% of it is actually going to be the truth. And then what's going to happen is that this is going to snowball. And every time we got more information that's going to be in the Washington Post, the New York Times, ESPN, a press conference, and the company will die. Not die, but they are going to incur cut after cut after cut, and that's what's going to happen as soon as this thing becomes public. So what do y'all think about that? Mr. Avenatti said that he knew when he took on his clients that they was lying. That 90% of what the Clarions had to say, 90% of what Geronda, his client, LC, his client, and whoever these two whistleblowers are, that 90% of it is bullshit, y'all. And that it's going to be up to, I guess, the prosecution to get to 10% where they are telling the truth. So the media hasn't really picked up on this little paragraph. Maybe they haven't gotten to it yet. Maybe they don't really care about it. But I just thought that was interesting that he made this comment in this and it's listed in this indictment. So Michael Avenatti was arrested today in New York, and he was facing charges of trying to extort money from Nike, of all people. Like, yes, Nike, the shoe company, sporting goods company. He tried to extort $20 million from him. And then after he got arrested for that, if that wasn't bad enough, he then turned around and was indicted in California for bank fraud and wire fraud. So let me go ahead. So it says attorney Michael Avenatti was charged with wire and bank fraud in connection with using his client's money to pay his own expenses, including operations for his coffee business, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. Here are the allegations against Avenatti according to federal prosecutors. He allegedly embezzled his client's money to pay his debt and expenses. Avenatti also used the funds to pay expenses at his coffee business, Global Baristas US LLC, which prosecutor says operates Tully's coffee stores in California and Washington. And the 48-year-old attorney also used bogus tax returns to obtain millions of dollars in loans and defrauded banks. He was just a crook all the way around. Now, that was what he's facing in California. So back to the New York thing, which really set it off, because Michael Avenatti had made a post on Twitter that he was going to do this press conference tomorrow at 11 o'clock where he was going to expose this huge conspiracy scheme involving, the sporting goods company. But honey, they rolled in 30 minutes after he posted that tweet and put the clink on him. So Avenatti's alleged scheme against Nike was an old-fashioned shakedown, the U.S. attorneys say. So Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, laid out the timeline for attorney Michael Avenatti's alleged extortion scheme, which Berman said played out over a course of less than a week. Okay, so that's just letting y'all know how weak this little scheme was, because it started and ended rather quickly. So the scheme began on March 19th with a meeting with Nike, where Avenatti claimed that he had a client who had information about potential misconduct by the company. Avenatti threatened to hold a news conference at which he would make the allegations public. So Avenatti met with the Nike people again the next day, and he continued to make what Berman described as graphic threats. And so I guess he had no clue that Nike was like Nike is a multi-billion-dollar company. Like, get a clue, dude. These people weren't gonna let you just roll in there and try and trick them like that. Like, this is not Stormy Daniels and the Judy lady and Geronda Pace and the rest of them. Like, these people got some legal teams behind them, backing them. And what made you think? And I'm thinking it must be knowing that he was about to go to jail on the bank fraud charges. Like, was he gonna try and pay the money back? Was he trying to get money so he could leave the country? Like, I am so confused on what he was thinking. Or was it just desperation coming out that made him think he was actually going to get away with this? So at the end of the meeting on March 20th, Avenatti and Nike agreed that there would be one final meeting, which was set to take place today. So after Thursday's meeting, Avenatti used a tweet with a veiled threat to Nike. And this was Avenatti's shot across the bow, Berman said. And so here's the tweet. So Berman made it clear that by engaging in this type of conduct, Avenatti was not acting as an attorney. A suit and tie doesn't mask the fact that at its core, this was an old-fashioned shakedown. Avenatti was arrested in Manhattan at the location where Monday morning's meeting with Nike was supposed to happen. William Sweeney, assistant director in charge of the New York FBI office, told reporters. So the Southern District of New York tweeted the timeline of the Avenatti case on Monday afternoon, outlining the events from March 19th to March 21st. So according to the timeline, Avenatti made the initial threats to Nike on March 19th. Shortly afterward, Nike informed federal prosecutors in New York of the threats. After that, interactions between Avenatti and Nike were recorded and monitored by the FBI. So if convicted on both charges of wire fraud and bank fraud in California, attorney Michael Avenatti will face a statutory maximum sentence of 50 years in federal prison, and said U.S. Attorney Nick Hannon at a press conference Monday afternoon. So U.S. Attorney Nick Hannon said that while the California case against attorney Michael Avenatti is completely separate from the New York case, officials coordinated his arrest today. So look, Nike was not trying to take another L after that whole fiasco with Zion Williamson and them shoes falling apart on that basketball court. They was like, oh, hell to the no, Michael Avenatti. You're not going to get us like that. As a matter of fact, we're going to use this to distract everybody from the problem with them shoes and other stuff that's going on. And we're going to sick them on you, just like you distracted everybody from the fact that you were facing these charges by rolling out these allegations and your clients against R. Kelly. So Nike put out a statement. And they said Nike would not be extorted or hide information that is relevant to a government investigation. Nike has been cooperating with the government's investigation into NCAA basketball for over a year. When Nike became aware of this matter, Nike immediately reported it to federal prosecutors. When Mr. Avenatti attempted to extort Nike over the matter, Nike, with the assistance of outside counsel at Boyles, Schiller, Flexner, aided the investigation. Nike firmly believes in ethical and fair play, both in business and sports, and will continue to assist the prosecutors. Then, if that wasn't bad enough, y'all, So when I read the indictment, I'm going to talk about a co-conspirator. So now it then came out that the co-conspirator is none other than Mark Geragos. Mark, I'm so ashamed of you. I don't know what to say. So Mark Geragos is Jesse Smollett's attorney who's trying to get the right to practice law in Chicago so that he can you know, handle Jesse Smollett's case. He's also Colin Kaepernick's attorney, and I'm just waiting on Colin to put out a statement saying that he has cut all ties with Mark Geragos, because that's exactly what CNN did, because he was a legal analyst for CNN, and CNN ain't really talked about the story yet. I've been waiting on them to come out, but they did let us know that Mark Geragos no longer works for them. When Mark Geragos also was Michael Jackson's attorney, and Winona Ryder, he represented her as well. And who else has he represented? The woman, Susan McDougal, that was involved with the Clinton situation. Scott Peterson. Like a list of people. He's like defense attorney to the celebrities. So I'm just really shocked that he allowed himself to get caught up in this nonsense. I have no clue what this was all about. Okay, guys, so before I get into reading the indictment, it is pretty long. But what do you guys think about this? Like, how you out here just tweeting all day long on your Twitter account? Just talking about all these people you going after and how you get ready to bring all these people down. Always going at people, talking about people, dogging people out, and then you just out here to lost your mind and doing all kind of dirt. And I'm just thinking that the possibility, like he had to have been trying to get this money to leave the country, because he was already, there was nothing he could do really to stop himself from going to jail, unless he was going to try and get this money, pay off the money that he stole from the client, but he was still going to go to jail. Now he just made the situation far, far, far worse by doing this. Like, dude, this is so stupid. I can't believe that you did this. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the full indictment. So, United States of America versus Micheal Avenatti, defendant, Southern District of New York. Christopher Harper, being duly sworn, deposes and says that he is a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and charges as follows. So count one, conspiracy to transmit interstate communications with intent to extort. 1. In or about March 2019, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, and others known and unknown, knowingly and willfully did combine, conspire, confederate, and agree together and with each other to commit an offense against the United States, to wit, transmission of an interstate communication with the intent to extort in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 875D. 2. It was a part and an object of the conspiracy that Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, and others known and unknown, unlawfully, willfully, and knowingly, and with intent to extort from a corporation any money and other thing of value, would and did transmit in interstate commerce a communication containing a threat to injure the reputation of a corporation in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 875D, to wit, Avenatti and a co-conspirator not named as a defendant herein will be called CC-1, devised a scheme to extort a company by means of an interstate communication by threatening to damage the company's reputation if the company did not agree to make multi-million-dollar payments to Avenatti and CC-1, and further agreed to pay an additional $1.5 million to a client of Avenatti's. overt acts. Number 3, in furtherance of the conspiracy and to effect the illegal object thereof, the following overt acts, among others, were committed in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. So, A, on or about March 19, 2019, in Manhattan, Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, and CC-1 met with attorneys for Nike Incorporated and threatened to release damaging information regarding Nike if Nike did not agree to make multi-million-dollar payments to Avenatti and CC-1 and make an additional $1.5 million payment to an individual Avenatti claimed to represent, and that person would be referred to as Client-1. B, on or about March 20th, 2019, Avenatti and CC-1 spoke by telephone with attorneys for Nike, during which Avenatti stated, with respect to his demand for payment of millions of dollars, that if those demands were not met, quote, I'll go take $10 billion off your client's market cap. I'm not effing around, but they spell it out. So, Title 18, United States Code, Section 371. As for Count 2, conspiracy to commit extortion. So, number 4, in or about March 2019, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, and others known and unknown, unlawfully and knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together and with each other to commit extortion, as that term is defined in Title 18 United States Code Section 1951B2, and thereby would and did obstruct, delay, and affect commerce and the movement of articles and commodities in commerce, as that term is defined in Title 18 United States Code Section 1951B3, to wit, and an economic harm, to wit, on an interstate telephone call, Avenatti and CC-1 used threats of economic harm in order to obtain multi-million-dollar payments from Nike to Avenatti and CC-1, and further to obtain an additional $1.5 million for Client-1. Title 18 United States Code Section 1951. Count 3, transmission of interstate communications with intent to extort. Number 5, on or about March 20th, 2019, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, unknowingly, knowingly, and willfully, and with intent to extort from a corporation any money and other thing of value, did transmit in interstate commerce a communication containing a threat to injure the reputation of a corporation, and did aid and abet the same, to wit, Avenatti, during an interstate telephone call, threatened to cause substantial financial harm to Nike and its reputation if Nike did not agree to make multi-million-dollar payments to Avenatti, and further agree to pay an additional $1.5 million to Client-1. Title 18 United States Code Sections 875D and 2. Count 4, extortion. So, in or about March 2019, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, willfully and knowingly did attempt to commit extortion, as that term is defined in Title 18 United States Code Section 1951B2, and thereby would and did obstruct, delay, and affect commerce and the movement of articles and commodities in Code Section 1951B3, to wit, Avenatti used threats of economic harm in an attempt to obtain multi-million-dollar payments from Nike, and further to obtain an additional $1.5 million for Client-1. Title 18 United States Code Sections 1951 and 2, and then it goes into background to the extortion scheme. So the basis for my knowledge and for the foregoing charges are in part as follows. And then number 7 on the indictment, it says, I am a special agent with the FBI, and I have been personally involved in the investigation of this matter, which has been handled jointly by special agents of the FBI and of the United States Attorney's Office. This affidavit is based upon my personal participation in the investigation of this matter, my conversations with other law enforcement agents, investigation of this matter, my conversations with other law enforcement agents, witnesses, and others, as well as my examination of reports and records. Because this affidavit is being submitted for the limited purpose of establishing probable cause, it does not include all the facts that I have learned during the course of my investigation. Where the contents of documents and the actions, statements, and conversations of others are reported herein, they are reported in substance and in part, except where otherwise indicated. Number 8, based on my involvement in this investigation and set forth in greater detail below, I have become aware of a multi-million-dollar extortion scheme in which Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, and CC-1, who we know is Mark Garagos at this point, used threats of economic and reputational harm to extort Nike, a multinational corporation engaged in, among other things, the marketing and sale of athletic apparel, footwear, and equipment. Specifically, Avenatti threatened to hold a press conference on the eve of Nike's quarterly earnings call and the start of the annual National Collegiate Athletic Association NCAA tournament, at which he would announce allegations of misconduct by employees of Nike. Avenatti stated that he would refrain from holding the press conference and harming Nike only if Nike made a payment of $1.5 million to a client of Avenatti's in possession of information damaging to Nike, i.e. Client-1, and agreed to, quote, retain Avenatti and CC-1 to conduct an, quote, internal investigation, an investigation that Nike did not request, for which Avenatti and CC-1 demanded to be paid at a minimum between $15 and $25 million. Alternatively, and in lieu of such a retainer agreement, Avenatti and CC-1 demanded a total payment of $22.5 million from Nike to resolve any claims Client-1 might have additionally to buy Avenatti's silence. Now, this is why I say Colin Kaepernick need to come out with a statement distancing himself from Mark Garagos, because is this the same type of tactics that Mark Garagos was engaged in when he was working with the NFL? Like, so now they're reporting that Colin Kaepernick only got $10 million, well, him and Eric Reid together got $10 million to end that suit. So I'm wondering if the NFL was basically like, if y'all don't, look, here goes some money, if y'all don't get out of our face, this thing is going to get real ugly. Because now this story here is kind of tainting the whole Colin Kaepernick situation. So Colin, I'm going to check back again before I end this video to see if you done distanced yourself from Mr. Mark yet. Relevant entities and individuals. So number 9, as set forth further below and based on any involvement with the investigation to date, I am aware of the following. A. Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, is an attorney licensed to practice in the state of California with a large public following due to, among other things, his reputation of celebrity and public figure clients, as well as frequent media appearances and use of social media. B. CC-1 is also an attorney licensed to practice in the state of California and similarly known for representation of celebrity and public figure clients. C. Nike is a multinational publicly held corporation headquartered in Beaverton, Oregon. Nike produces and markets athletic apparel, footwear, and equipment, and also sponsors athletic teams in many sports, including basketball at various levels, including the high school, amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. D. Client One is a coach of an amateur athletic union, AAU, men's basketball program based in California for a number of years. The AAU program, coached by Client One, had a sponsorship agreement with Nike, pursuant to which Nike paid the AAU program approximately $72,000 annual. Lord, y'all. Please don't let this be Snoop Dogg's team. Because it's Snoop Dogg that got the AAU team. Or is that football? Okay, that's football. I'm sorry. Let's strike that. So E, Attorney 1 and Attorney 2 work at a law firm based in New York and represent Nike. And then E, Attorney -1 and Attorney -2 work at a law firm based in New York and represent Nike. And then F, the in-house attorney, is an attorney who works for Nike. So March 19th, meeting with Avenatti, number 10. And so when I'm saying like number 10, I'm talking about the bullet points in the indictment. So based on my conversations with other law enforcement officers, review of notes, text messages, and emails, and discussions with Attorney -1, who, as noted above, represents Nike, I have learned the following information in substance and in part. A, on or about March 13, 2019, Attorney -1 learned from a representative of Nike that CC-1 had contacted Nike and stated, in substance and in part, that he wished to speak to representatives of Nike. CC-1 had further stated in substance and in part that the discussion would occur in person, not over the phone, as it pertained to a sensitive matter. B, on or about March 15, 2019, Attorney -1 spoke by phone with CC-1, and CC-1 stated in substance and in part that he was trying to be discreet on the phone, but that he and Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, wished to speak with representatives of Nike in person. And if you're just joining, coming in on the video, CC-1 has been reported to allegedly be attorney Mark Garagos. So C, on or about March 19, 2019, at approximately 12 o'clock p.m., Attorney -1, Attorney -2, and the in-house attorney met with Avenatti and CC-1 at CC-1's office in New York, during which the following occurred, among other things. So Avenatti stated in substance and in part that he represented Client -1, an AAU coach whose team had previously had a contractual relationship with Nike, but whose contract Nike had recently decided not to renew. According to Avenatti, Client -1 had evidence that one or more Nike employees had authorized and funded payments to the families of top high school basketball players and or their families and attempted to conceal their payments, similar to conduct involving a rival company that had recently been the subject of a criminal prosecution in this district. Avenatti identified 3 former high school players in particular and indicated that his client was aware of payments to others as well. So two, I said I before, but it's the Roman numeral where you're numbering. So Roman numeral 2. Okay, so Avenatti further stated in substance and in part that he intended to hold a press conference the following day to publicize the asserted misconduct at Nike, which would negatively affect Nike's stock market value. In particular, Avenatti stated in substance and in part that he had approached Nike now because he knew that the annual NCAA tournament, an event of significance to Nike and its brand, was about to begin, and further because he was aware that Nike's quarterly earnings call was scheduled for March 21st, 2019. Thus maximizing the potential financial and reputational damage his press conference could cause to Nike. 3. Avenatti further stated in substance and in part that he would refrain from holding that press conference and damaging Nike if Nike agreed to 2 demands. 1. Nike must pay $1.5 million to Client -1 as a settlement for any claims Client -1 might have regarding Nike's decision not to renew its contract with the team coached by Client -1. And 2, Nike must hire Avenatti and CC-1 to conduct an internal investigation of Nike with the provision that if Nike hired another firm to conduct such an internal investigation, Nike would still be required to pay Avenatti and CC-1 at least twice the fees of any other firm hired. Ooh, I can't, y'all. I can't. 4. At the end of the meeting, Avenatti and CC-1 indicated that Attorney-1 and Nike would have to agree to accept those demands immediately, or Avenatti would hold his press conference. In particular, CC-1 indicated that he and Avenatti would contact Attorney-1 and Attorney-2 and the in-house attorney later that afternoon to discuss Nike's response. So, D. Later that day, Attorney-1 left a voicemail for CC-1 indicating that Nike needed time. CC-1 subsequently returned Attorney-1's call and stated in substance and in part that Avenatti had agreed to give Nike until Thursday, i.e. 2 days, to consider the demands before holding the threatened press conference. Okay. E. So after the conclusion of the meeting described above, representatives of Nike contacted representatives of the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York regarding Avenatti's threats and extortion demands. So the March 20th call with Avenatti. 11. So that's bullet point 11 of the indictment, not charge 11 for those who are just joining. So based on my conversation with other law enforcement officers and Attorney-1, my own observations and my review of notes, text messages, audio recordings, and draft transcriptions of those conversations, I have learned the following information in substance and in part. A. On or about March 20th, 2019, at the direction of law enforcement, Attorney-1 sent CC-1 a text message to schedule a telephone call for later that day. B. On or about March 20th, 2019, at approximately 4:00 p.m., Attorney-1 and Attorney-2, who were in their offices in New York, spoke to CC-1 on a telephone call that was consensually recorded and monitored by law enforcement. During the call and at the direction of law enforcement, Attorney-1 asked CC-1 for more time to consider the demands made by Michael Avenatti, the defendant, and CC-1 the day before and or another in-person meeting to discuss those demands. CC-1, who stated in substance and in part that he was in Miami, Florida at the time, said that he would speak to Avenatti to discuss the possibility of delaying the deadline for Nike's response and could further discuss with Avenatti the possibility of setting up another in-person meeting. So the way this is starting to read, I'm trying to think maybe Mark Garagos was like an informant for the FBI. It was stringing Michael Avenatti along, because I just cannot believe that Mark Garagos would be this stupid to get himself involved in this mess. But I really believe that Michael Avenatti would stoop this low. So C, less than an hour later at approximately 4:50 p.m., Attorney-1 and Attorney-2 again spoke to CC-1 on a telephone call that was consensually recorded and monitored by law enforcement. During the call, CC-1 indicated that he had spoken to Avenatti, who was yelling and angry because he did not believe that Nike needed more time to respond to the demands for payment. CC-1 stated in substance and in part that Attorney-1 and Attorney-2 would need to provide some justification for delaying the deadline, and that CC-1 would attempt to set up another call with Avenatti so that Attorney-1 could discuss the request for an extension with Avenatti directly. D. Shortly thereafter, at approximately 5:10 p.m., Attorney-1 and Attorney-2 engaged in a three-way phone conversation with Avenatti and CC-1 that was consensually recorded and monitored by law enforcement During that call, the following, among other things, occurred. And another reason I'm thinking that Mark Garagos was setting Avenatti up is because they keep saying a consensual call to let law enforcement in on. And I believe that only in some, it's different. Eavesdropping on phone calls and recording of phone calls is different in different states. So I'm thinking that one person, so it was Nike that wanted to record the conversation, and then I think at least one person on the other end of the call has to be in agreement in some states. So like if there's 3 or 4 people on the call, only one of them have to agree. So maybe I'm got my fingers crossed, y'all, and I'm hoping that this is what the case is with Mark Garagos. So, one, Avenatti reiterated that he expected to get $1.5 million for our guy, i.e., client -1, and he, quote, hired to handle the internal investigation, adding that, and if you don't want to do that, we're done here. 2. Avenatti also reiterated threats made during the previous in-person meeting, along with his demand for a multi-million-dollar retainer to do an internal investigation. With respect to the internal investigation, Avenatti made clear that his demand was not simply to be retained by Nike, but to be paid at least $10 million or more by Nike in return for not holding a press conference. So 3, in particular, Avenatti stated in part, quote, I'm not effing around with this and I'm not continuing to play games. You guys know enough now to know you've got a serious problem. And it's worth more in exposure to me to just blow the lid off this thing. A few $1 billion doesn't move the needle for me. I'm just being really frank with you. So if that's what's being contemplated, then let's just say it was good to meet you and we're done. And I'll proceed with my press conference tomorrow. I'm not effing around with this thing anymore. So if you guys think that we're going to negotiate $1.5 million and you're going to hire us to do an internal investigation, but it's going to be capped at $3 or $5 or $7 million, let's just be done. And I'll go take $10 billion off your client's market cap. But I'm not effing around. 4. Avenatti and CC-1 continue to discuss how much Avenatti expected to be paid by Nike for doing an, quote, internal investigation. Avenatti made clear his view that an internal investigation of conduct of a company like Nike could be valued at tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds, stating in part, let's not bullshit each other. We all know what the reality of this is. Adding later in the conversation that while he did not expect to be paid $100 million, he did expect to be paid more than $9 million. 5. Finally, Avenatti stated in substance and in part that he would agree to meet with attorney -1 in person the following day, Thursday, March 21st, the date of Nike's scheduled quarterly earnings call and the beginning of the NCAA tournament, to present the exact amount he demanded from Nike. And then they have a note at the bottom of this page saying, the quotations set forth in this complaint are based on draft transcriptions of the recorded conversations and are in preliminary form only and subject to change upon further review. And then on page 9, it finishes that paragraph. And it finishes up by saying, and under what terms it would have to be paid. Avenatti further stated in substance and in part that like Nike, he would be required to provide an answer the following Monday or he would hold his press conference. Then they move on to the March 21st meeting with Avenatti. 12. Consistent with the phone call described above and based on my conversations with other law enforcement officers and attorney-1, my own observations and my review of a video recording and draft transcription of that video recording, I know that on or about March 21st, 2019, Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, CC-1, attorney-1, and attorney-2 met at CC-1's office in New York. That meeting was consensually video and audio recorded by attorney-1 and attorney-2 During that meeting, the following, among other things, occurred. So, A, at the beginning of the meeting and at the direction of law enforcement, Attorney One stated that he did not believe that a payment to Avenatti's client would be the sticking point, but that Attorney One needed to know more about the proposed internal investigation. Avenatti stated in substance and in part that he and CC-1 would require a $12 million retainer to be paid immediately and to be deemed earned when paid, with a minimum guarantee of $15 million in billings and a maximum of $25 million unless the scope changes. During the meeting, Avenatti and CC-1 also stated in substance and in part that an internal investigation could benefit Nike by, among other things, allowing Nike to, quote, self-report any misconduct, and that it would be Nike's choice whether to do so. Now, I am convinced more than ever at this point that Mark Garagos was acting as a mole in this situation, and he was actually on the team of Nike, not on Micheal Avenatti, and he helped set him up real good. So B, Attorney One noted that Attorney One had never received a $12 million retainer from Nike and had never done an investigation for Nike, quote, that breaks $10 million. Avenatti responded in substance and in part by asking whether Attorney One had ever, quote, held the balls of the client in your hand where you could take $5 to $6 billion market cap off of them. C, Attorney One also reiterated at the direction of law enforcement that Attorney One did not think paying Avenatti's client $1.5 million would be a stumbling block, but asked whether there would be any way to avoid Avenatti carrying out the threatened press conference without Nike retaining Avenatti and CC-1. In particular, Attorney One asked, in substance and in part, whether Nike could resolve the demands just by paying Client One rather than retaining Avenatti and CC-1. CC-1 indicated that CC-1 understood that Nike would like to get rid of this problem in one fell swoop rather than have it hanging over their head. Avenatti noted that he did not think it made sense for Nike to pay Client One and, quote, exorbitant sum of money in light of his role in this. Avenatti and CC-1 then left the room to confer privately. D. After returning, Avenatti stated in part, if Nike wants to have one confidential settlement and we're done, then they can buy that for $21.5 million and we're done. Full confidentiality, we ride off into the sunset. I think Micheal Avenatti needs to be drug tested because obviously he is on something serious. E. Avenatti then added that, quote, I just want to share with you what's going to happen if we don't reach a resolution. That, quote, as soon as this becomes public, I am going to receive calls from all over the country from parents and coaches and friends and all kinds of people. This is always what happens, and they are all going to say, I've got an email or a text, a message, or now 90% of that is going to be bullshit, because that's always bullshit 90% of the time. Always, whether it's R. Kelly or Trump. The list goes on and on. But 10% of it is actually going to be true, and then what's going to happen is that this is going to snowball. And every time we get more information, that's going to be the Washington Post, the New York Times, ESPN, a press conference, and the company will die. Not die, but they are going to incur cut after cut after cut after cut. And that's what's going to happen as soon as this thing becomes public. F. Finally, Avenatti and CC-1 agreed to meet at Attorney-1's office on Monday, March 25th, 2019, which is today. Avenatti made clear that Nike would have to accede to his demands at that meeting, or he would hold his press conference, stating in part, if this is not papered by Monday, we are done. I don't want to hear about somebody on a bike trip. I don't want to hear about that somebody's grandmother passed away or the dog ate my homework. I don't want to hear none of it. is going to go anywhere unless somebody was killed in a plane crash. It's going to go zero, no place with me. Then his little behind have the nerve to be talking mad trash. So 13, based on my review of a Twitter account publicly associated with Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, I have learned that, consistent with the threats communicated by Avenatti, as described above, and within approximately 2 hours after the conclusion of the video recorded meeting described above, Avenatti posted the following message on Twitter. Based on my participation in the investigation and my review of the article referred to in the tweet described above, I am aware that the article refers to the prior prosecution involving employees of a rival company referred to by Avenatti in his initial March 19 meeting with attorneys for Nike. Wherefore, the opponent respectfully requests that a warrant be issued for the arrest of Micheal Avenatti, the defendant, and that he be arrested and imprisoned or bailed as the case may be. Special Agent Christopher Hopper, Federal Bureau of Investigation, sworn to before me this 24th day of March 2019. So they were working on this on Sunday. And then it says, Honorable Stuart D. Aaron, United States Magistrate, Judge, Southern District of New York. They done got the judge off the golf course on Sunday to sign this. So guys, that's it for me. What do you think? Leave your comments below. Rate the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.